Good morning. You're listening to Caregiver Crossing. This is a podcast brought to you by Joy's House, and we are really happy that you're here because this podcast, Caregiver Crossing, was created just for you, the caregiver. I'm Tina McIntosh.
I'm Terry Stacy. We're here every week. We bring you experts from across the country, providing some comfort, resources, and joy to our caregivers. This podcast serves to embrace the family caregivers of today and also of tomorrow. So as Tina said, thank you all so much for being here. And Tina, let's jump right in.
All right, I'm going to say 4 words. The first 3 are hyphenated, and I want you just to get an image. It is end-of-life doulas. End-of-life doulas. Something I really know nothing about. And so
no, but I think you do have a little bit of that in you, an end-of-life doula. I think you have that ability. I think that you could do it.
All right. So I can buy that. And I've been with a couple of people when they've been in life, and it's one of my favorite experiences. I just think it's such a blessing to be there. And, these folks that do this are non-medical professionals. So they're, volunteers or non-medical who work with people who are seriously ill and who are facing death. And for those who are healthy, but just want to prepare for death. So there are a couple different facets to this. And today we're joined by Barb Marshall from Graceful Passages. And she is an elder care consultant and certified end-of-life doula, which I want to know more about. So Barb, thank you so much for being here with us.
Well, thank you for having me.
All right. So we have so many questions. I mean, first of all, I say end-of-life doula, and I can get an image in my head, but can you, in very simple terms, tell us what it is?
Well, I have to say up front, an end-of-life doula can be as little as or as much as an individual person and or family and caregiver's need. But as you referenced just seconds ago, an end-of-life doula is a non-medical trained person that incorporates holistic, meaning the physical, the emotional, the spiritual facets with someone who has a life-limiting condition. And it could be truly at the very, very end where someone is transitioning and actively dying, or it could be very early in the process as well. So, and I always tell people, if we put as much emphasis into death and dying as we do the beginning of life and birth, we would be far better off because
it is the truth.
It is.
We're terrible at it.
Yeah, it is. And we prepare for birth. We don't prepare for death and dying. And it is the single one thing that everyone has in common. Everyone will die.
I think because birth is the beginning and death is the end. And I think that's why it's so hard to talk about with family. It's so hard to talk about. Even as you get older, it's hard to think about. And for someone to be able to have the type of job that you do, it takes a very special person to do it. So how did this happen for you? Truly.
I have to say, truly, it was a God thing. I was in pharmaceutical sales for years and fell to the layoffs that took place in the 2000s. And I was laid off in 2008 and then subsequently laid off 4 more times within the next 4 years. And I had a friend who recommended this job for me, and I went into it truly believing it would be an interim. I never, ever in my life dreamed that I would talk death and dying all day long, much less be good at it and have a passion for it. And so it's a God thing. It's just a God thing. And I came to it later in life. But I still plan on doing it for quite some time yet.
How did people react when you told them you were going to be an end-of-life doula? Were they like, okay?
Well, the people who knew me from my hospice days were like, oh, yeah, that makes complete sense. I can see that. People outside who, one, don't even completely understand hospice, much less what an end-of-life doula does or is, would look at me and go, huh? What? A doula? What's that? They have no clue.
I think that's fair. So you mentioned hospice, and then I'll throw in palliative care. And how is end-of-life doula-ing? I don't know if that's a thing, but how is that different than being in hospice or being in palliative care?
Well, it's always a difficult question to answer. In hospice, and I do not mean to sound negative or cynical, but they are so governed by Medicare and time constraints. The nurses have anywhere from 5 to maybe 10 patients to see in a given day, and they have to check boxes and they go. Social workers, chaplains, CNAs, all of them are limited in the time that they can spend with a patient. A doula can bridge that gap between those services. And ideally, As I had a client for 7 weeks in Lebanon from May into June, I started much earlier in the process with her. She knew she was terminal. She still had radiation treatments that she was pursuing. And I was with her through that process and then deciding, yes, it was time to stop the treatments. And then had that relationship established and was with her then until the end. And so I'm the one who made the recommendations for hospice for her.
Okay. So you can work hand in hand. I know Terry has questions, but I'm going to sneak a couple in here.
No, go. You go. Go ahead.
What does doula mean? Is there a meaning for the word that we know?
Caregiver.
Okay. Well, okay.
Medical caregiver.
Duh. Then that makes sense. And then the other part is, are you on call 24/7?
Depends on the client. On my website, my Facebook page, I have my business hours Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. But depending on the client and the arrangement that we make, I can be available 24/7. I am not a certified nurse assistant. I am not a CNA, and I'm not trained to do that, though I can, I was a parent. I was had babies. I know how to do personal hygiene and that sort of thing if required of me, but I am not a CNA. So it depends on what that patient needs and how I can fill it or refer them to the resources that can do those jobs that they need. With this lady that I had in Lebanon, I'm the one who finally said she needs 24-hour caregivers. She was in an assisted living, but to stay there, she was going to have to bring in more personal care because she could not assist herself anymore. And so I'm the one then that was the liaison between and made the recommendations for the guardian to bring in the care. So I worked with the assisted living, I worked with the guardian, I worked with the physicians, I worked with the patient to make sure that all those gaps were filled.
This is Barb. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, as you can tell, it can be as little or as much as.
This is Barb Marshall, and she is from Graceful Passage, an elder care consultant and certified end-of-life doula. And so what is the holistic part of it all? Because I'm always interested in holistic. So what part of that, how does that work in what you do?
Because when you approach a patient who's coming to end of life, they are getting typically the clinical care that they need, the medical care that they need. They have been to physicians. They have family who's overseeing the clinical care. I come in and I want to know where their headspace is. Where's your head? Where's your heart? Where's your family's head and heart? Do we need to have difficult conversations? And this little lady that I cared for, no one ever told her she was terminal until I did. It never came out of the physician's mouth. And she had cancer with multiple mets, including 3 tumors in her brain.
Oh, Barb, that, here's my only experience with that. I've had cancer a couple times, and Terry, unfortunately, has been forced to walk, arm in arm with me through those journeys. And I remember the first time when I was diagnosed, I know exactly where I was. I was sitting outside at Joy's house up on the balcony. The sun was shining. I'm on the phone. And I loved my doctor at the time, but she never said the word cancer. She used all the big terms. And I remember saying to her, when I hang up with you and I call my husband and he asked me if this is cancer, what is my answer? Right. And she said, yes. But it would have taken me a long time to get to it's cancer because I'm not a medical professional. I can't imagine being end of life and people are talking around it and using all those words.
Exactly. Wow.
Right now, want to tell you, I literally thank God for the work that you do and the part you play in people's lives and the peace that you must bring them just by being next to them and walking that journey. So thank you for that.
Well, you're welcome. And it's truly, I believe it's an honor and a privilege when someone allows me in that space and to help them. And one of the highest honors that I have ever received, even through my hospice years, is one of the private duty caregivers pulled me aside after this lady passed. And she said, I have to tell you 2 things. 1, she loved you. And I said, well, she was easy to love. And 2, she said, you're the only one who talked death with her.
Yes. People are so afraid of it, aren't they?
Yes. And I mean, no one would. The people in the assisted living, no one would talk about this with her and find out what she wanted. And how do you want to die? Do you want friends and family here? Do you want to stay in the assisted living? Do you want your cat in bed with you? Or do you want the cat taken care of and placed before that? So all of those things. And what does it mean for you to die well? And what do you want? And if you, in an ideal world, what do you want? And that's where, Terry, I talk about the holistic, because I'm bringing in that emotional, and unfortunately, hospice nurses don't have the time to have those kind of conversations and spend that kind of care bedside. And neither do the social workers or the chaplains. They, unfortunately, for the most part, they are checking boxes. They're coming in and I have to do 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Do you need anything else? Out the door they go.
Yep.
And it's just the nature of the beast. And it is. And I don't mean that negatively, because I love my work in hospice. And it was the corporate stuff that led me out the door.
Absolutely.
I looked at the doula.
A couple other questions and we're going to have to close for today, but how many end-of-life doulas are there, let's say in greater Indianapolis or in Indiana? Do you know?
Indiana, if you go to the various directories, there are approximately 20, and each one has a little different niche. As I referenced earlier, I was a college professor at one point, and I approached things from an educational standpoint. There are those who are very big in home funerals, home wakes, natural green burials. There are niches there. Some are into what I kind of call the existential types of areas that people can get into. And I am a very pragmatic person, and I believe in providing as much education and information so that people can make the best decision for themselves.
Tell us, before we have to go, what do patients and their families, what should they be considering when they're choosing an end-of-life doula?
A lot of it's personality, and I would call multiple and see where they're from, where their head is in comparison to where your head is, and the way you are feeling about things and what your needs are. And I mean, I have a master's degree in healthcare communication, and I am very much that educator, and some aren't into that so much and haven't had the years of bedside and hospice knowledge that I have and truly understand how hospice works. So it truly depends on where the patient, family, and caregiver are coming from as to what they need. And if you go to the various directories and look at the doulas in the state, you read their little bios, you can get a good feeling of where they are and whether or not you think that would be a good fit for you or your family. And then you call them and you interview them, which is what I always told people to do about hospices.
Yeah. Barb Marshall from Graceful Passages. How do we find you? How do we get a hold of you again?
My phone number is 317-572-8070. I have a Facebook page. It's Graceful Passage LLC, and as well as my website, which is gracefulpassagellc.com. And call me, text me, email. And my email is long, so I won't try to give it to you. Look at my website or my Facebook page, and then you can see my email and email me.
Joy, who is our wonderful producer, will make sure that we have all of that when we launch this so that people can get in touch with you. So Terry.
Absolutely. You're amazing. Thank you so much for spending time with us and for the work that you're doing. As we close the show, we want to remind everybody, if you need Tina McIntosh and want to talk to her, you can get more information and a lot of good resources too at tina@joyshouse.org. And also our good sponsors, Caregiver Crossing, supported by our friends at AARP. They are leading a revolution in the way people view and live life after 50. They're awesome. And Tina, American Village, senior living community right here in Indianapolis. We appreciate their support as well. Thank you all so much for listening to us today. And we look forward to our next conversation next week. Take care.